And stepping up to the Zoom chat corner in the beige and flower fabric corner, recently vacuumed floor, we have weighing in at 477 pounds. The wonderful, the magnificent. She's got 2 names instead of 1. She's never seen Mulan 2. It's MK Komins. Hello.
That was perfect. That was perfect. I love that. Everything about that was 100% accurate.
I feel like we got the
That's my Tinder profile. You basically just recited my entire Tinder profile. Thank you. Save me the trouble.
Oh no, you caught me out. I've been stalking. The only problem with that intro is that I left out that you're an artist and a painter and that you're here to talk
You know what?
today.
That is everyone else's problem. That's not your problem. That's not my problem.
So I know you mostly from your abstracted portraits, the digital traditional mix, like you have, like you just were in a show in Super Chief in LA, which is an amazing gallery recently. But you also do, I've seen animation and character design and all sorts of stuff. So how would you describe your like art in total, like what it is that you do?
So I'm kind of in a, it's interesting you bring that up because I was just talking to my friend today about this, that I feel like I am in this sort of like transition of what I'm focusing on in my work right now. So I went to school, I went to Parsons, I went to school for illustration, and my dream job was that I wanted to be a character designer and a concept artist for Pixar or DreamWorks. Like I wanted to work in children's animation and kids books and all that kind of stuff. And then my life fell apart and I went to rehab and I've been sober for the past 5.5 years. But like along that, I sort of lost my way. And then after coming to like picking up the pieces of my life and starting to make work again, I just started painting again because I needed to do something creative, and like there weren't any, fine art is sort of your own thing, like there aren't as many like rules. It's not a client based, there's shows and there's guidelines and stuff, but for the most part you have a lot more freedom. So it felt good to just give myself a lot of freedom and a lot more permission to do that. So like for a while I've been calling myself a fine artist, just like a painter. But lately I've been taking on more and more, especially like in this economy, I've been taking on more and more illustration work again and doing a lot more character design. And like, I think I kind of built my name up enough that people trust me to do that. So like my fine art is taking a slight pause right now. And I'm doing a lot of character design. I'm working on a documentary project right now where I'm doing some illustration stuff. I have a kid's book in the works. I'm developing a pitch right now for a TV show. And all of this is stuff that like I had honestly completely abandoned. Like I started getting a lot of nice recognition for my painting and thought, this is good, this is validating, it's making me a little bit of money, it's all the stuff I want. And then like sort of fell into this again because I have a client that trusts me and asked me to do some, and I was like, oh right, this is what I really love. Like this really feeds me in a way that just making work just for me like wasn't really cutting it anymore. So I would say like I'm just an artist, whatever that means. I think like portraiture and character work is, even though they go to different places, they're kind of the same because I'm making, a character out of a person that already exists. I'm like showing a human in some sort of new way. So it's sort of like just one spectrum. The fine art is stylistically more representational, all the way down to the sort of mass consumption character design that's going into a bigger project. That was a really long answer, but I couldn't think of a shorter way to answer that question.
No, it was great. Whenever someone asks me any question, I always go into life story. So I would have gone.
That was pretty succinct.
I feel like you have to, because it is so important with the experience you've been through that's led you to what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also I like knowing about people. I'm a nosy bitch, and I want to know I want to know the tea. I want to know all of it. So like, if someone tells me like, oh, I'm a painter, I used to be this and now I'm this, I'm like, why? Like, tell me more. I want to know all of it.
Who hurt you? What happened to you?
Yeah. Don't you want to overshare your life with me? Like, I'm here, I'm listening. Go ahead.
Well, because there is always a story as well, and obviously people can choose not to want to want to say it, but there's always going to be a reason why we do the things that we do and how we end up
Yeah.
somewhere. Like, it's never just like, oh, this just happened and I had no input whatsoever. That's really interesting. I didn't know that you had started off like that. Do you feel, because to me, I'm always thinking about like this idea of fine art, and if you want to be in certain galleries compared to, say, illustration, which I'm often drawn towards. And in my mind, I feel like I have to maintain a certain way of presenting myself in a certain like style, so that I can stay in that fine art world.
Yeah.
But are you finding that the two are able to coexist quite harmoniously for you?
I am. Okay, so yes, I think that they do coexist much more simply than our fear tells us as artists that it will. And I think I just give a lot less of a shit than I used to. Like, whatever I lose as a result of being more true to myself and making the kind of work that makes me happy, it's not anything worth keeping. Like, really, that's how I feel about it. And also if I think about people who really straddled that line beautifully, like if you think about someone like, Norman Rockwell was an illustrator, but like we consider him a great artist now. In his day was like highly regarded and also completely disregarded because it's not fine art, it's illustration. But he was a master. Like, he was a master painter, a master of light, a master of form and expression, and all these things that, like, today I don't think that line matters so much. If you have a point of view and you have talent and vision, like, that's kind of all you really need. And then it's the world's problem to figure out where to put you, really.
Yeah, that makes so much sense to me. And I feel like once you stop caring as much, it opens up, it's so freeing personally and in terms of work and where you go, and it's like the work ends up being way better because of it.
Yeah, better. And also, like, I do notice a correlation. There's things that are outside of our control when it comes to like how our work is received, and a lot of it is really outside of our control, like algorithmic bullshit. But like, in general, the work that I make from a place of like sincerity, for lack of a better term, is almost always better received than the thing I'm doing because it's the thing that is expected of me, or like, because I like, a huge thing is like, I will get really enthusiastic about a project or an idea or a series. I'll make a couple of paintings and then I'll kind of evolve past it, and I'll still feel like tethered to it. I'll still feel like I owe it, or my audience or whoever, to see it through, even though like no one really cares, I think, ultimately.
I was literally just thinking that. It's like right before you said it, it's like nobody cares. Like, these stories that we create in our heads, and obviously I'm still dealing with because I asked the question. And it's like nobody cares as much as you care yourself that you're making your mind.
Not just that, but I think that now more than ever, like, audiences they're fickle, but they're also so adaptable. They're so accustomed to like the thing that they used to like not being cool anymore, or not being that thing anymore. Like, they're just, people are taking on such a unprecedented amount of content all of the time that it's almost like you're really, I think you're doing yourself a disservice by not just saying fuck it and like trying new things and making what you want. Like, for your own sake and for sort of like, culture at large, like, you're not really benefiting the people who do like you and the people who do support you by placating them and just, doing what you think is going to hit the same way. And like, the crazy thing is that we like develop these belief systems, and it's so hard to trace where they come from, because I can think of a number of artists who I really respect and love who, like, I don't really get that tingle when I see their work anymore, because it looks the same as when I got excited about it, 5 or 10 years ago. And I don't have any less respect for them. I get where it comes from, but like, when I like see it, if it pops up in my feed or whatever the thing may be, it's like, okay, I'm liking that sort of muscle memory because I know who you are and I want to support you. But it doesn't, like, I'm not like, oh wow, look at what you're doing. That's really, and there are people who do continually surprise me. And that's really what motivates me to want to keep pushing myself, is like, and one of the reasons why I've been finding such joy in taking on this different kind of work and doing more character design stuff is because it's like, I think that the people who like the way that I paint will probably always like it to, you know, to a degree. And what about all the people that like don't care about fine art, you know, that don't follow it, or that like kids especially, like what a magical opportunity to be able to like make things that could affect children. And I think about like, I just did an interview with this gallery that's in Mumbai, and they were like asking about my origins of drawing. And I was thinking about like when I was a, you know, toddler sitting in front of cartoons, drawing them, I have a very vivid memory of like understanding that a person made this, you know, like I saw that it wasn't magic. Like I saw that it was like, oh wow, like what was cool about it to me was that it wasn't magic, you know, like that, like I could sort of understand somebody, like an adult got the opportunity to make this thing and draw it and make it come to life and build this whole world. And that was more magical than the thought that it was just like real. Like it was just real magic. And so I've been thinking a lot about that concept of like real magic and how art can be real magic. And especially for kids, like what a cool thing to get to be a part of that for somebody.
Yeah, and now you're the wizard slash witch, whatever magical being you want to describe it. So that's you now.
Oh. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I've thought often about how it's strange talking about how people stay like very strictly coherent with their work like throughout their career. It's like it seems to be this contradiction that exists where it's like as an artist, no matter what type of art you do, like a primary part of what people value in you is your creativity and your innovation.
Yeah.
Then we do feel this pressure to limit that by staying within some sort of coherent, understandable narrative. So I think it's really cool to just say like, actually, do we need to do that and to just make the work that you want to make? I think that's a really great thing to be doing.
I've never watched a single like art documentary where an artist did the same thing that they'd always done for 40 years and felt creatively satisfied. You know, like there's always that arc in an art documentary where someone's like, yeah, well, you know, I was having all these struggles and I felt like my art was kind of like dead, but like people kept buying it. Like I was just watching, my partner and I watched this documentary on Chris Burden the other night, and it was a great documentary. You know, he's a sort of do you know much about Chris Burden?
No.
So he was like a very polarizing figure in the art world. He was basically a performance artist in the 70s through the 80s, and then sort of like used his body as sculpture in a kind of way and did a lot of like violent stuff and interesting stuff. He had a friend like shoot him in the arm for like a piece and captured the whole thing. And so just like really sort of like aggressive, provocative things in like a, you know, sort of dull time for art in the 70s. And then, you know, like did a lot of screwing around. And like in the documentary, he died in 2015 of cancer when he was like in his late 60s. But he went through an entire career arc of starting as this sort of like, you know, like Evel Knievel of the art world kind of person, and being really aggressive. And like his later work is like sculpture, like beautiful, thoughtful sculpture. And he says this incredible thing about like he stopped doing performance art because like critics were basically saying that, you know, at a certain point the world is expecting you to do this thing, and then you like there's no way to stay for him to continue to be shocking and provocative when the world is expecting that of you. And so he sort of listened to the critics and was like, you know what, you're right, I'm not going to become a cliche, I'm going to do what I actually want to do, and I'm going to sort of transform what my work looks like. And in that way, by listening to critics, he was actually defying them at the same time. Like it was this cool dichotomy of like, yes, I am taking your advice, but I'm also not going to become that. And so by not becoming that, I'm rebelling against what is expected of me. Yeah, it's a great documentary, but it was also just like very poignant to what I've been feeling lately about like, who do I owe anything to besides myself? You know, I get to dictate what my career looks like. I get to dictate what my creative choices look like. And in my experience, people are much more willing to go along for the ride, you know? if you introduce them to something new, they might be a little bit resistant. But if you stay really like open to the whole process and true to yourself, then people usually want to come along with you, and then you get to pick up another audience, which I think is really cool too.
Yeah, definitely. And what are I think you touched on it before, but what are the threads that do tie it together for you? Is it people and kind of representing characters, or?
I think that's the main one, definitely. Yeah, because I've done some still lifes and some more abstracted stuff, but I kind of always end up making portraits no matter what. I think I have a natural sort of strong grip on figure and form and anatomy and things like that. So I'm drawn to that. And I just like expressing things, and like people are the most I really like narrative and storytelling, and I think that like a portrait can do all of that in one thing. Like a person can do and say so much, and then we're also always projecting our own shit onto people. So the experience of viewing a portrait is a narrative, is your own narrative. So it like has multiple tiers to it, and then character design is exactly that. You have to think about who this person is, how you express that in both a really sophisticated and incredibly simple way. And one of the things I've said like a million times when I've talked about illustration is that illustration is the art of making something subtly obvious, and that's really what character design is. So like using subtleties within, whether it's like this character is a secret bad guy, so I'm going to arch his eyebrows or whatever, like doing subtle little things that really obviously convey what you're supposed to feel. I also think that like the thing I like about illustration and character design is that all the stuff that you're not supposed to do when you're viewing fine art, you're encouraged to do with character design. You can be more obvious, but also like as a viewer, you don't want to make big assumptions about someone's thought process or about like, the person behind the portrait. You're supposed to take in all the nuance and subtleties. And like with character design and illustration, especially when you're speaking to like a young audience, you want to immediately know what you're looking at. You want to like make all of the assumptions and be right about it. So I like that it gives me like, as someone who's a little bit of a control freak, it's like a way to exercise that artistically.
Yeah, because I feel like that would be one of the big differences to me between illustration design and fine art, is that fine art loves ambiguity. They want you to be confused and for it not to be clear.
I can't get enough of it. Yeah, fucking love it. Yeah, totally. And I do too. I like secrets and like little like I like when I'm wondering about something, and I like to project, like I said, project my own ideas onto stuff. That has its own value. With illustration, the other main difference is sort of like why you're consuming it. So like if you're consuming illustration, you may not necessarily want to be. It's hard to accidentally find yourself in an art gallery. and to be consuming especially like high art and like sort of conceptual art, you have to sort of seek that out. So it's okay to be challenging in that way, because if someone's going to put themselves through the trouble of finding it and consuming it and having an experience with it, they want to be challenged. Illustration, it's like, I don't necessarily like, I'm not going seeking for that if I'm reading a periodical or an article or like watching TV. I mean, I as an artist, and most people know that that's a part of it, but like you have to make something that's gonna really like add to a thing that already exists or brings new meaning to that, instead of challenging somebody. Like the piece could be challenging, the illustration is there to sort of like either soften it or bring new light to it or make it more accessible in some ways. So like there is a lot more creative compromise that goes into being an illustrator, and for most fine artists I think that would be a fucking deal breaker. Like we don't want to compromise our vision, and frankly, that's why I started painting again and, didn't immediately try to become an illustrator again. At this point in my life, I'm actually getting a lot out of that compromise. Like I'm finding a lot of freedom in compromise, because it's not all up to me. Like I don't have to have the final say all the time. I don't have to make decisions that are it doesn't all rest on me, which is really nice too.
Mm.
And there is like value in compromising with yourself and other people. I think that like compromising, to your detriment is one thing, but being willing to be open and fluid and like try things that you might not normally try, or adapt yourself to a certain situation, those are like incredible traits that are hard to come by. They're hard to like find natural opportunities for that. And like being a commercial artist is all of that.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm enjoying it. I think it's a growing experience for me.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was thinking in terms when you said that you came to painting because after being in rehab, and I think that made me think about how like painting for a lot of people is almost an escape from the world.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
I know for me, it's definitely been a coping mechanism from things in the world that I couldn't handle myself mentally.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like the type of work with illustration that you're describing is much more about being in the world and being with other people and really engaging with it more directly.
That's a really good point. Yeah. I wonder how much of that too is like in this time of, coronavirus, like that it's so satisfying to be a part of a team. Like it's so satisfying to be, to have people who are asking for what I'm doing, like to collaborate. It feels, cathartic in a way that my own fine art practice like isn't hitting in the same way that it used to, because like, there's a like, I have this show with Arch Enemy Arts that opens May 1st online, and then I don't have another show booked to the fall, and I'm like totally fine with that. But like it's scary, like thank God I have this ability to do this other stuff, because a lot of people don't have that ability. And like the thing that's so nice right now is that connection, is like I'm doing the thing I kind of always do, but it's like for a greater good, or for a cause that's beyond just my own like self-satisfaction, and for the few people who like what I do, like it could reach people that I have nothing to do with, that won't even know I was a part of it. Like that's like, it's like a humility involved in it that is not a thing that like I get from fine art. And it's a thing I didn't really know I was like craving. There's like an anonymity to it that I didn't know that I wanted, because I like attention, and that's not something I usually seek out. That was my painting.
Yeah, this is giving me a lot to think about personally, which I'm going to put in a box and think about. Because right now we're on you, not on me, interviewer.
Yeah. Keep it in there. Keep it in mind.
Like right now, if people are watching this in the future, right now we're going through quarantine, like about a month in, and it's a challenging time for people to stay connected, and for artists especially, like you said, you don't have many shows lined up in terms of gallery. And I know we wanted to talk a bit about like artists supporting each other and practical things that we can do at this time. So I'm going to throw that open to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's like levels to support, and all of them are welcome right now. So like it's really a matter of like, what can you give that isn't going to take from you? Because I also think that artists, we all need to just stay as sort of conscious of each other's needs as possible, like as conscious of each other's needs as we are with our own needs. So like understanding that people are going to do as much as they can, and also that like there's a level to which you need to take care of your needs first also, which I understand. So I think like of course, like anyone who can financially support an artist, cool. Like if you've ever wanted to buy a painting from someone, if you've ever wanted to commission a painting from someone, or what, like sculpture, whatever, now would be the time. But I think a big thing that I don't hear talked about that much, but I do know is a big part of my life and a lot of artists' lives, especially ones who are not art superstars, is that we work on payment plans a lot of the time. And I think like it just doesn't hurt to ask, especially right now, probably more artists than you would think, and don't be intimidated by Instagram follower count, because it just like doesn't really mean anything. Like I know plenty of people with 50,000 followers who like struggle to make their bills. So that doesn't always translate. And if you really like something and you think, what can I afford? Could I afford $100 a month? Could I afford, a down payment of $500? Like whatever, like you just never know until you ask someone what their rates are, if they have payment plans. and what that would entail. And a lot of artists would probably be, no one should be giving themselves a discount or giving their shit away right now because we need it, but like would probably be flexible to at least talk about that. I've definitely been more flexible talking about that stuff to people. And then like prints, a lot of artists make prints of their work. A lot of artists do like smaller versions of stuff or whatever. And then like the simplest thing too, which sort of ties into what we were just talking about, and not every fine artist is going to be willing to do this, but like, what do we have a need for that requires an artistic eye, that we maybe can't accomplish ourselves, but like, are you starting a podcast in quarantine? Do you need someone to do like a nice graphic for your, Apple Podcast, Spotify logo, like that kind of stuff, right? It's like, okay, maybe this isn't my strong suit. I could probably afford $100 and have someone spend an hour of their time doing it, like just stuff like that. Like there's so many opportunities for people to extend their creativity right now. And again, like personally, I have those skill sets, so I'm more willing to apply them to stuff like with illustration and design. But even just like, hey, like my partner's birthday is coming up, and I like just started getting unemployment, and I have an extra $100 or $200 that I could spend to make something really cool for them. I want them to do a little caricature or a comic. Like just look in your everyday life and think about how much of what we're doing right now, and this is not an original thought, I've seen a lot of people talk about it, but like art is in everything that we're doing to pass our time, whether it's like looking through Instagram artists, watching a lot more TV, reading, like YouTube dance tutorials. There's like an artistic mind behind most of that, like everything, porn, video games, there's like art involved in all of this stuff. And so like, okay, am I consuming this? Am I getting it for free? Who could benefit from it the most? And like, how can I contribute a little bit? And then, beyond financially, if you just can't, which is totally real, like sharing a post from an artist you like and giving them credit does a lot more than people would think, really. Like there have been times where people have reshared something I've done and it's gotten in front of the eyes of a curator who doesn't follow me, who's contacted me, or someone who like I don't remember exactly how, but one of the companies that I'm working for right now and doing some of this, illustration stuff for, they're this incredible production company out of Brooklyn. They're called Hey Beautiful Jerk, and they do a lot of like really awesome, you would love them actually, specifically you, because they've done like a lot of the RuPaul's Drag Race, like promo stuff. Oh, like, cool. They're really cool people. But they found me through Instagram, and I have no idea how. Like someone shared my work. Who the hell knows who it was? It doesn't, could have been someone with a lot of followers or someone who's a personal friend, and like they found me through that, and they've been an awesome creative, like collaborative partnership. So yeah, as much as you can, like throw out your ideas about what your feed is supposed to look like, or like whatever kind of like branding thoughts you have about your social media presence right now, like to be as supportive as you can. It really does make a difference, and it's much appreciated by the artists, like really and truly.
Yeah, I feel like, well, that is all really useful stuff, I think, in general, because it's never easy to like make a living and survive as an artist. And I feel like for people that don't work in a creative job themselves, and you touched on this, it can look like you're really, really successful because you have a lot of followers, because you're doing certain shows, because you're doing big projects with big companies, right? But that doesn't mean that you're even anywhere close to comfortable. Like I know some of the most famous muralists in the world live off $10,000 a year. Yeah. And like it's unthinkable. When you actually put a number to it, it's unthinkable.
Oh yeah. Like in 2000, this is like 100% true. In 2018, I made $10,000, about $10,000 in like taxable, like seriously. I mean, and it was a pretty big year for me. Like I showed in London that year. I got the opportunity to like Beautiful Bazaar shared some of my work, and I started to get more and more recognition, and like more and more people reaching out to me, and I was traveling a lot, which was really cool. But like all of that doesn't equal like any kind of stability. I was still graphic designing. I was still, my day job was still like, I was straight up like, I mean, this is the joke I always make, but it's true. I was like photoshopping pizza menus together to pay my rent and like afford a studio space. So it, there's no, because who someone is does not mean that they are comfortable at all. And they're probably struggling more than you know. Yeah. really. That shit is so real. You know, like, I don't even know what the metric is, like what, like the idea of visibility equaling success has never been less true than it is right now. And you know, visibility is great and it's important and it's helpful, but there are artists that I like love who have like a couple thousand followers, and they are good, like they're fine, you know, like they don't, and the reason why is because they're not stressing out about things like that. Like, they've had a career for a long time, it's existed before this, or you know, they just know the right people and they're sort of doing their thing offline, and you know, like are perfectly comfortable. So that can be really deceiving for people.
Yeah, it's such a trip. And
That looks awesome, by the way. Look at me down there.
yeah, look at you go.
I completely forgot that you were painting a picture of me. And I was like, who's that bitch on your screen?
Me too, actually. I've been kind of doing this and I'm like not even really paying attention to what Ashley thinks. I'm just listening to you talking. So.
Oh, whatever.
I'm like, oh shit, a painting's happened.
Right, I'm doing something.
I know you've also been doing, in terms of like, that's people supporting artists, especially economically, but then you've been doing like a lot of group virtual drink and draws with artists, kind of also creating that community and wanting us to kind of be there for each other and not retreat into yourself, like, which is applicable for everyone. But so do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, artists are definitely naturally, I don't want to say we're introverts because I don't really consider myself an introvert, but I do think we isolate. You know, I think some artists do, and this is our language, is to like express ourselves and put ourselves out that, right? Yeah, some of us are. And like to a degree I am. I think I really am one of those flip-floppers. I'm a verse when it comes
that's way to be.
like in every way. But no, specifically with that, because it's like I get really energized by people, and then there's no happy medium. So I'm either like really, really jazzed up, or I reach my limit and then I'm like, fuck off, you know, and I'm like completely drained and exhausted and I don't want to. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of like addicts I know are like that. A lot of creative people are like that, where, you know, it's like, it's an all or nothing game. And so I think that like my thought process with that is like, I haven't done one for a couple of weeks because I've been busy, honestly. Like I've had stuff going on in my own life. And so I've been trying to give myself permission to do it when it feels right and not like a burden, and when I can actually be helpful to people. Like we're talking about support, right? Like, and if this is a resource I can offer and I'm draining myself in order to do it, then I'm not really helping, you know, like then I'm sort of self-sacrificing, which is not the same thing as supporting. But I'd like to do one this week because I think my schedule is going to open up a little bit. But anywho, yeah, like the idea we were talking about it. That's how the idea came about. Like I was like chatting with you and it's like, hey, you know what? This is probably a thing we could all use a little bit more of. And there's no real, like, they've been like a little formal. And I think when I start them back up, I want to be a little more loose with them. Like I was setting up these still lifes. My roommate, I live right above an antique shop. And so there's all these really cool tchotchkes and antiques and stuff throughout our house and then in the store downstairs. And she was like, well, you can use the stuff, you know, if you want to like have cool shit to draw. So I was setting up all these little still lifes and doing like rapid draw sessions and then some 5-minute drawings and like a long pose. Cause that's just like my art school, you know, mentality is to be a traditionalist. But like I found some, I had a couple of thoughts about it, but I found some resources online that are just like figure drawings, like nude figure drawing reference photos that are rapid fire. So you can like set a timer for them. And I think that would free me up a little bit, because part of the issue has been that like I'm setting up these things and I'm kind of moderating and or mediate, whatever. And I'm not able to like be present. So anyway, that's a little tangent, but the real thing that I get out of it, and the real thing I get out of like talking to people like you or doing these things, is just like a sort of, it makes me feel human. And it also makes me, it is forced outside my head time, which is really valuable. As much as artists like to isolate and introvert and all that, we have to pull inspiration from our experience, from our life experience. We have to be fueled up at some point. Even if you don't get energy from people, you still need experience to like recharge something, whatever that thing is. So I think that even just by like hosting a drawing hangout or having a conversation with someone, like your energy and your focus will shift after that has happened, for better or worse, but it's an experience. Like it's just something else to break up your day, to pull from creatively.
Definitely. Yeah, I think a lot about how for writers, a large part of their job is to go out and find something to write about.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that applies to all creatives. I think about that for myself as well, even though someone might look at the work that I do, it's like, oh, you're just doing a portrait of someone you don't like need. For me, like I'm always drawing upon what I've experienced and how that's affecting my mind. So I feel like it is part of my job to live life.
Yeah.
As opposed to like hole away and do this thing.
Completely. Yeah. And like in an ideal world, people are experiencing your work in real spaces too. Like obviously right now it's all online and it's all digital and stuff, but like ideally you create something, you're paying it forward by making a piece of art, like you're getting an experience, you're making something from it, it's going in a space, whether it's a mural in a public space or a gallery or someone's home or whatever. Like the end process, like the final step is someone else viewing it and having an experience with it in a physical capacity, in a physical space. And like that can start the chain reaction for that person to then go and create or feel differently or have a meaningful conversation with someone about it or whatever. So I think that like if you're holed up all day only consuming digital content for like hours or days or weeks or whatever on end, like it does dull the work that you're making to a degree, because it's like a non-alcoholic wine or something versus wine. Like, oh, it's got the flavor, you can cook with it maybe and whatever, like, but you're not going to get the experience from it, which depending on what you're after, if you're a sober person like me, that's a good thing. But the point still remains the same, that like you need to pull from an authentic like place, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I know. How much time do you have? Did you want to talk about productivity stuff still? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I probably got another like 15 minutes before I gotta get back to whatever the hell I was doing. I need to run to the grocery store, but yeah, besides that, I've got time.
Like literally ran. Tom
like
Cruise,
literally run. Like tell everybody to fuck off. It's around
my house. They have a little balcony so you can see out onto the street, and I do see that often. And I don't know if this is the case, but I'm really imagining, like, so I see people with their shopping bags running, and I'm imagining, like, are they really in that state of mind where they're like, this is like a war zone that I have to run to the supermarket and like grab it as fast as possible?
I don't know what you think. If anything, that's probably worse. Like, I understand that you're look, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor. This is pure bullshit theory. But I'm thinking, like, if you're I get that you want to go back into your house, but like the actual air outside, if you're not next to a person, isn't the danger zone. And I feel like exerting yourself and like, I don't know, that to me, that seems like a total panic move. Like that there can't be any real benefit to running. Also, it's like dangerous. You're running with groceries.
And it actually spreads. If you are spreading, it spreads it further, because I love jogging, so I've been jogging a lot, and so I looked that up the other day because I was like, like wearing a mask and jogging is weird, but then anyway, it's a whole thing. But it might not even be what they're doing. Like I've run back from the grocery store not out of panic before, but for my own reasons.
Maybe they just like really have to take a dump or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's, who knows? You never know.
Well, they just want attention,
That's true. Maybe it's actually the same person, and they've witnessed you on your balcony at roughly the same time every day.
Maybe.
And they're like, I'm going to put on a show for him. That's the narrative in my head.
Well, it worked. I've been thinking about them a lot.
Exactly. That's going to be, I read this really obnoxious article about like a couple finding love in the time of quarantine in Brooklyn, and it was like he saw her from his roof and she saw him from her roof, and then they started like sending cute letters to each other in their windows, and like, I know I'm being a real negative Nancy right now, but it was just it just whatever reason irked the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Because first of all, they're like finding love in the time of quarantine. This article was written 3 weeks ago when New York had only been under quarantine for 2 weeks. So I was like, okay, so we're in love now. 2 weeks. Also, who are these rich jerks that they like have a publicist or knew the right person to get this article written? I don't know. The whole thing was just dumb. But like, I like this version of it, that it's just you bored outside looking at one person being like, you will be mine one day. I just need to make a scene for a while and then I'll get your attention.
Yeah, I mean, I am standing on a balcony, so I am asking for it. They are the most
exactly
places. I was thinking I was thinking of that pun, because love in the time of cholera. I was like, love in the time of quarantine, something could happen there. Have you read that book?
You know what? I think I've lied and said that I've read that book a lot lately, and I don't think I have. If it's the first time.
I think I've read it, but I honestly could not tell you the story.
Me too. I'm like, I must have, right?
Yeah. I know
it's like, I must have seen this movie because I could tell you everything about it and I know all the cultural references, but I don't know if I've actually seen this movie.
Yeah, I watched Indiana Jones with someone the other day under the pretense that I had never seen it, and this was interesting because it's such a big cultural phenomenon. I started watching it, and halfway through I realized, oh, I have seen this.
Yeah, and it's also not very good. It's not very good movie. Which one? Because some of them are real tough. Some of them are real racist.
Raiders. Yeah, well, there was a lot of that, and there was also the woman in it is she's quite like spunky, and she wants to fight and help. And he literally at one point picks her up in the middle of a fight when she's trying to fight and throws her into a hay cart, and then the hay cart leaves, and then later he goes back to the hay cart and he's like, what? Where is she?
Yeah. Those movies. And you know what's funny is that they're these staples for a certain kind of man, of like adventure, and like, you know, like Harrison Ford being this emblem of masculinity and aloofness and cool guyness. And he's such a dickhead. Like, he plays such a smart ass dickhead in like honestly most of his movies, but in those in particular, he is just such an asshole. I mean, forget it. Like, we don't have to get into how horribly the like roles for women were written in those movies and how little agency they have. But yeah, they're fun. I get why, you know, they're Spielberg movies, so they're like high production, sort of camp and like excitement, but they do not hold up very well. They're really tough to watch.
It really just reminds me of how much things have changed, because like if that's what was it's not even that it happens, it's that it's acceptable. Like, this isn't something anyone would necessarily question. Like, this is such a normal thing to like throw a woman into a cart, and like how that would affect how you go about your day-to-day life is boggling to me.
Well, throw a woman into a cart because she's for like a comic relief moment, and also because she's just getting in the way. Like, that there's no way she could have been helpful in that moment except to literally just like treat her like trash.
Yeah.
Throw her out of the fucking frame because she's just like in the way.
It's wild. They also reveal at the beginning when they meet that it's like she was really young, and they didn't really say exactly, but he basically like took advantage of her, and so she hates him. But then they end up becoming lovers without ever addressing that fact. And
without ever addressing the fact that she's like absolutely his abuse victim and is just falling back into the cycle of that.
He never even says sorry.
No, well, he doesn't need to say sorry. He's Indiana Jones. His hat and his whip do the talking.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent, but
no, it's totally fine.
Wild.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't think I've read that book, but I go back and forth between feeling confident about that. Sometimes I lie about it and I say yes, I've read that book, but I don't think I've read that book.
There's loads of things I repeat all the time, and it takes me a while to be like, wait, is that actually true?
Yeah. This is a myth that I've created about myself, is that I love this thing, or this, like, even things that I think of as really important to me, I can't trace their origin. Like, I can't remember where that comes from, or if I just one day, like you start buying into your own brand of bullshit at a certain point, and you're like, huh, is that my thing? Do I care about that? It's something that I think happens as you get older too. You start to like demystify yourself, and become a lot more comfortable with like the parts of you that are just straight up boring, or that like aren't sexy and clever, and just like what you like. And you know, like for me especially lately, just like this is sort of ties into what we're talking about being a little more fearless and just doing the kind of work that makes you happy versus like what you think people expect of you. But who do you have to answer to at the end of all of this? Like what is your life going to benefit from fitting into some idea of a cool girl or a cool boy or a cool person? Like, who gets anything out of that? I don't know. I don't think anybody really.
Yeah, definitely. I've been thinking about, especially like what we're going through right now. I think it's such a reminder that like things can change like that any second. Like people
Yeah.
say all the time, like life is too short, but also life changes all the time, and a lot of it is completely unpredictable and chaotic. So it's like,
Yeah.
what's the point trying to like stick within this rigid idea of what things should be or have to be when like, you know, we could all end up quarantined tomorrow, or we could, you
Yeah.
know, who knows what's going to happen. So
Yeah, and like honestly, in those times, in this circumstance, you're really not benefiting from keeping any kind of facade. You know, like you're really only suffering if you're meeting other people's expectations before your own. Because like if you're alone, especially if you're quarantined alone, like you have to reach for your own comfort. You know, you have to you have to create your own sanctuary and find your own joy. And that is only, you have no one else to answer to for that. Like that can only be dictated by yourself. And that's like that, if we can take a gift away from this, like that's one of them, is that you have the opportunity to sit with yourself and like, and become more comfortable with those things, and like find a little bit of peace and self-acceptance in who you really are. I think letting go of judgment is so hard. Like letting go of our own judgment, you know, like it's in a lot of ways, I think it's easier to like empathize with other people, and sort of relinquish judgment once I understand another person. But there are things that like are still a struggle to not judge myself for, that are deep rooted, long time ago gone things. People who probably don't remember that thing, or who, you know, don't remember who I am, or just like experiences that I have shame and guilt about that are like, who knows why, you know, like that in a biography wouldn't even be their own chapter, wouldn't even have their own thing, but like stay with you because they inform so much about the way you go about the world. It's crazy.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but watch whatever dumb show you like, and just live your truth. Just be okay with that. You know, I've been doing that. I've been watching some garbage lately. It's been awesome. It's been so nice.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts racing through my head right now, so I'm trying to organize them.
That's fine. That's okay. I'm just really into this 90s boy band hair that I have. So every second you're not asking me questions, I'm checking myself out.
It's giving me a little bit of Link as well from Zelda.
I can see it. It's really crazy right now. It is just, I feel like I'm turning into a Pixar character a little bit as I'm like talking about all this stuff, because the shape that my look at this. Shape is just something. I don't even know. I'm like, why is it so big up here? And then it's got like tails. And then my roots are like on their own journey. It's just fucking crazy.
I love that. So I think that ties into where my mind was going, because I was just thinking that in terms of letting go of this judgment of ourselves and of like living like fully in what it is that we want, and like letting go of this idea of what we should be doing, what others expect of us. I think for me, a lot of it comes down to confidence, and that like I say creative with art stuff, the more confident that I feel in what I'm doing, and some of that comes with success because I'm able to feed that back into how confident I feel about being able to create good work, etc. And then I'm finding myself just in the last couple months experimenting so much more than I ever have before.
Yeah.
That. And
yeah, I love what you've been doing. It's exciting to watch. You know, like it ties back into what we were saying. We're like, don't you get excited when someone's trying something, whether you like the result or not? I'm always like, look at you doing that new thing. Like, I don't know. I think it's brave to try to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, but so that's how it ties into your hair. It's about having the confidence to be able to go through that. And I think you have the confidence to rock this Pixar haircut.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I mean, I have no other choice. Sometimes confidence comes from really, really just like doing an honest assessment of your situation and your surroundings and being like, you know what, this is me now. Like, what am I gonna fucking do about it? Really. It's like that a lot with not just like physical stuff, which is like, you know, everybody has their own journey with self-acceptance and self-esteem, and I certainly have my own struggles with it, but like I find that a lot with when you're in like a less than desirable situation, like feeling confident, like getting through it with like some grace isn't about pretending like it's not a problem. It's just about like confidently owning your role in the situation and accepting people where they're at, basically, and like, you know, understanding that like this is how it is right now, and I might not be able to make it better, but I can always make it worse. I think that so much of the time, like this is a perfect example, quarantine is a perfect example of how it is not a problem I can solve, not even close to a problem I can solve for anyone, but I can make it worse for people. I can make it worse for myself. I could make it harder on everybody. I could, you know, like that's where my power is.
Yeah,
it's in the choices that I'm not making, you know, like making the right choices is really important, but also considering like how you affect other people is just as important. So like when I'm not dyeing my roots, I'm thinking about all the people that I'm not harming with my hair choice. I just got really serious about something really silly, but yeah, same you know.
No, it makes so much sense to me, and I think any way that we can find a sense of agency within what is ultimately a very like chaotic and like situation or life, it can be really powerful.
Yeah. Also, my sponsor is a hairdresser, and she has repeatedly told me not to dye my own hair in quarantine. She has made it like I will suffer for it if I do it.
I want to have like a Jerry Springer moment where she's gonna come out behind the door. Now your hairdresser is here with us.
Yeah, because I like it's so funny because there's certain things that like I just like treat myself very well in certain regards, and in other regards I have no standard for what I deserve. I mean, cut my own hair well into sobriety, which I had no business doing. Like I'm not good at it at all. I have no formal training. Just because I'm fun and creative does not mean I know how to fucking cut hair at all.
Did you? This looks great. Did you do this one?
No, okay. No. This is a professional haircut grown out. So the only reason why it does not look even crazier is because I treated so this is like a new thing for me. It's like I decided I was worth $50 and I got a nice haircut. And like,
great.
Thank God I did, because I got it cut like maybe 2 weeks before this happened, and now it's sort of growing out at like an okay place. But like I don't like, I personally, if I only had myself to care for, I would have bleached it already, done more damage to my hair, gotten in trouble with my sponsor, you know, it would have been a whole thing. And so I'm really working on being patient with myself and like knowing that I am worth the professional root touch up when this is all over. That it's going to be okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you touched on something before that made me think of this too. It's like the concept of mental health of being your own friend and treating yourself the way that you would treat a friend in terms of how you speak to yourself, and then also things like knowing that you're worth the things like a nice haircut that you would say to a friend as well.
Yeah, I was just talking to my friend earlier who I had caught up with on FaceTime. We were talking about food because my partner is in food, and we're talking about like that you're worth more. Like food is a good example of how it's not about like spending more money than you have to eat well. It's about making choices about how you spend the money that you do have, you know, to show yourself that you are worthy of nourishment and feeling better and sleeping better and all that other stuff. Because I, again, like left to my own devices, would eat just hot trash if it was served to me on a plate. Like, I don't care. Last night my partner had this like beautiful pasta, like lasagna. It was like amazing. This thing that he brought home, and was like, took the loving time to put it in the oven and slowly heat it and make it. And I was like, I'm telling you, if you were not here right now, this would have been microwaved so fucking fast. I would have been sitting over the sink eating it, like still cold in the middle. I like don't care at all. But when someone else loves you and you have to like think about your own worth, it's like, no, I am worth a warm meal. I am worth like a decent experience with this stuff. And like, it's not that I need to spend an extra $40 on good groceries, is that this is less relevant right now, but before quarantine, like I don't need to spend $40 on fancy coffee drinks when I could make them at home, like that kind of stuff. Like there's always a choice that you could make. What's going to make me feel better? Jittery, nervous diarrhea throughout the day because I've had 5 coffee drinks, or like a nice salad with good ingredients. Really, a salad is probably gonna, that's probably gonna be helpful.
Yeah, I like that angle on it, because I'm definitely not a foodie in any way, but I think that it's important thinking about it as something that is nourishing you and is about self-care.
Yeah.
Rather than also taking nice Instagram photos or whatever.
Yeah. So it's funny because of all of the attention seeking I do online, I like pretty much never post. True fans will know that I never post pictures of food. And there's a reason for that, and it's because I am a terrible cook. I am a really bad cook, and I don't have any, I seriously, like if I had anything to show off culinarily, I would do it, and I just don't. Like, I have no skill in that regard at all.
Maybe you could start the anti one and just like have the microwave.
Well, I mean, I love someone who does care and who does know a lot. So I'm trying to learn to, it's not that I don't care, it's that I just don't have the knowledge. Like, I would love to be a person that knew everything about good food and good eating practices and all that. I just, it's not willful ignorance. It's just ignorance because it's not a part of how I came to be. But like being with someone who really cares about it is like, it's a good growing experience. We've been watching Good Eats. That's been like a nice sort of downtime before bed show that we've been watching. And it's like, it's a cool angle to watch someone who's very, very smart talk about things that are very, very simple, and make things that have seemed intimidating to me my whole life, like cooking and the sort of science behind certain meals and how to, like things that I've avoided learning about because I thought it was out of my depth. And so watching someone like explain it in this way that is like, oh, okay, what you're saying sounds really smart, but I'm understanding it, so maybe that means that I'm smarter than I thought. Maybe this means that it's cool. It's been a really eye-opening experience for me.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I felt that with getting into things like makeup, is that I stopped myself from getting into it because I assumed it was so complicated that it would take me a really long time, or I wouldn't necessarily be able to do it. But then once you just start doing the thing or finding someone to explain it to you in a way that you can understand, it's like, oh, nothing's like that out of my depth. Like I can do anything if you just like take the time to want to do it. And that's
Last year I like started to learn how to code a little bit, and I took some of I've started to like teach myself After Effects, and I've been doing, I've throughout the past year and a half, like I've done some like augmented reality on paintings. I've done some animating on paintings, stuff that like I have no formal training in whatsoever, and just thought it looked cool. Figured that I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I'm not the simplest either, and I can probably, even if it takes me 3 days to learn this thing that would take an expert 15 minutes, it's still attainable. It's not totally out of my depth. So I just started taking like Skillshare classes and, watching YouTube tutorials on that stuff. And I'm still not an expert. I probably couldn't teach anybody, but that's where, like, if we bring it back to confidence, like confidence is something that, you gain slowly by like like the thing that I always hear in like recovery terms about self-esteem is that self-esteem comes from doing esteemable acts. So like, you can't just manifest it out of nowhere. If you want to, feel like you've done something worthy of being proud of, it starts with a little act of esteem. You know, it starts with a little bit of that, and then it builds momentum-wise.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think we're about to get kicked out of this meeting again.
We are. I was going to say that I'm also going to let you get on with your day.
Thank you. I'm going to get back to my...
Well, thank you so much for talking with me. This has been such a interesting conversation for me, and so many of the things that you said have resonated so strongly.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. So I'm definitely going to...
Was that a compliment or total shade? Because you're like, this has been a really interesting conversation for me.
I once had a friend ban the word interesting for that reason. They were like, it doesn't mean anything. It's like,
No. I'm just being a total shithead. I appreciate it. It's been interesting for me too, and wonderful and lovely, and I love talking to you.
It's resonated so much, and I feel very connected to you in this moment, because I
Me
think a lot of the
too.
things you're describing has been to myself.
Yeah, I miss you, even though I like barely know you. You know, like I miss the opportunity to know you, and I can't wait till I can come back to LA and like spend some time with you.
Quarantine hugs.
Oh, my sweater is really soft. You're welcome. It's really nice.
So people can find your Instagram, MK Komins, and
m.k.komins. Yeah.
Awesome, and website and everything like that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mkkomins.com.
Yeah. Cool. I'm excited to see what you're working on. I know you couldn't show a lot of it.
Oh yeah, I have a thing. I didn't even get a chance to show it. If I have time, I have a print that's dropping on Monday. I'm gonna be posting about it obnoxiously on my Instagram. You want to hear something fun? I vacuumed before this.
Oh my God, you spoil me.
For no reason. I was like, company. I should vacuum. I'm having company, even though you're only gonna see me from here up, and it doesn't matter. But
we're gonna feel it though.
You're gonna feel it. You know what? I still think it's like wearing fancy socks when you have shoes that like boots on. You know, it's like you exude that you put in the extra effort, even if you can't tell.
Yeah. Or like when you wear no underwear, like nobody else knows, but I know.
Well, I vacuumed, and spoiler alert, I'm not wearing any underwear. Again, I like to prepare for company. I like to make them feel comfortable.
So I'm a little bit rushed today because I was gonna start your painting. So this is gonna be the base.
It's beautiful. It already looks so much like me. I feel like that's it.
It embodies your spirit. So I was gonna do the setup stuff that I just did last night.
Yeah.
But instead, I ended up spending about 6 hours making memes about Adele.
Oh, did you? I know, because I followed the entire journey this morning. I treated myself to an extra little... You know what too? This is how much I like and adore you, is I didn't even do that like the rapid fire. I actually sat there and I took it all in.
You know, that means so much to me. That's
You're welcome.
Friendship nowadays.
Yeah, I think so. I because I don't have any, when I go like Morse code on my Instagram story, I have no expectation that people are have the time or patience for my shit. So I'm like, you know, like you can like watch the numbers drop off the longer your story goes.
And I do that.
1,000 people, and then I'm like, okay, and it ends at like 220, and those are just like my stalkers, my partner, and my immediate friends, and I'm like, that's fair, that's fine. Yeah. But I think most of those are just like I'm so guilty of that, like I just think it's good decor, like good like it's tactful, you know, to just give them the full flip through, so at least it looks like I'm fully engaged.
See, that's very self-aware. I feel like for most people, they wouldn't even think about exiting.
Yeah.
No.
You don't need to. Like, you don't owe anybody that. I'm not offended. I just think it's nice when someone, you know, follows through on it.
Yeah.
And also,
I assume that most people do that because
me too.
Way less people drop out than they should. And it's still a lot of people, like it's still dropping out a lot. But I'm like, the fact that any of you have gone to the end of this is shocking to me.
Yeah, like this was just for me, and I just needed, it wasn't even like, I didn't even need an audience. I just needed it to get out of my head I'm sorry you have to suffer for it. You know, like I'm not expecting anyone to be like, bravo on your content. Like that's, I don't expect that. It's just like, well, thank God that that's out there now. And now I don't have to go through that again.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, there have been so many times where I've been like, I mentioned something to my partner. I'm like, yeah, you know, like that video thing. And he's like, what video thing? I'm like, oh, because Instagram tells me that you saw it. So what that says to me is that he loves me and is doing the sympathy, like doing the same thing where he's like, oh, did you expect me to have my sound on? Huge ask, first of all. And also to like have been paying attention. Like, of course not. You're just going to tell me about it anyway. And like, I'm not going to, you know, I can't blame him for that. I understand.
You know, I actually, when it comes to people who I see nearly every day,
Yeah.
I actually block them from my story because I don't like when people just know everything that's going on with you, because I do post all of my waking thoughts. It's like a mind dump.
Yeah.
So I would rather they have to ask me.
Oh, I like that's a nice.
About.
That's a good. That's kind of that's good policy. That's good. That's good practice. Best practice is what.
I mean, it's also a little bit strange. I have to trick the people around me to want to ask about.
I mean, it is incredibly manipulative of you. but like respect game. I also kind of appreciate that you're like, well, in order to maintain my friendships, there must be some level of, you know, manipulation involved. So this is like, it could be so much worse, you know. It could be like gaslighting your friends, but instead you're just forcing them to ask about your life, which is nice.
Well, it's a slippery slope, isn't it? We'll see where we end up after another 3 Adele marathons.
Right. Well, I got, you know what I have to say, if I have any critique of that, it's that I got all the way through it and then I saw that you started a Beyonce one and I was like, okay, here we go. This is the content for me. I'm really glad I stuck around because, you know, it's sort of that, like, if you stay in a movie theater to the end of the credits, there's like in a Marvel movie, there's, you know, there's like a sneak peek as to what like sequel what's gonna happen next. Yeah. So I was like, oh, Beyonce's next. Like, and then I felt proud of myself for being a good friend and staying on through that journey so I could see the Beyonce content. And there was only like 3 or 4 of them. And I was like, oh, okay. But I think there might be more legal, like, I don't know if Beyonce's music is Instagram available in the same way that Adele's is. I don't know.
Yeah, and the sequels are always disappointing, you know?
That's true. That's true. We don't want to disappoint the fans by shooting for the stars with Beyonce and then, you know, like not making it all the way.
Exactly. So you might as well just not even try. Like Disney, just straight to VHS. Don't even bother putting it in cinemas.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your art. I'm loving this conversation.
Oh yeah, right. Duh. I'm just like, oh, friend to talk to. Yeah, go ahead, ask me some questions.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a quick intro for you, which I'll probably edit into the beginning.
Okay, cool.
So this painting is gonna be a continuity nightmare. So.
Yay! That's me. That's what everyone calls me. Yeah. MK continuity nightmare. That's me. I'm just thinking about do you listen to Whimsically Volatile? I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm thinking about all the intros, the like ridiculous Katya intros for people. Like a Vince McMahon WrestleMania sort of level intro. You know, where it's like, you know, in this corner, the 110-pound blah 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 blah. But it's like Katya's sort of like mania, like rambling on about the person. It's pretty great. I mean, I can't again, I'm not that quick-witted. I can't do it.
Okay, I'm gonna try it.
Okay. I'm ready for it. I'm here for it.